What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Wire. It is Wednesday, October 6th. We are going to talk a little bit about the NBA because Kyrie Irving has got some spotlight on him yet again. We might get into Daddy Brady a little bit. We're definitely going to talk about Pete Carroll and whatever the hell is going on in Seattle. And we had a GOAT alert last week. These guys said they could argue Richie on Justin Tucker being the greatest kicker of all time in the NFL. We're going to see all that and more. You're watching The Wire, and it starts right now.
Going in, it's first and 10. I'm a legend boy, a champion. They can't match the flows, the X's and O's. I'm breaking the code, devastation about to unfold. They calling me Derek by the way I roll. Bet you never ever seen a pro this cold. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I mix with I am Mike and the great Ali. I'm a run it back, believe me, baby. I fathered the game, call me Daddy Brady. I'm like that, try be like this. Sammy, so that boy don't miss. It's the return of the greatest. Any way you name it, I'm everybody's favorite. I'm bringing the pain and bringing the fire. Hey, stay tuned, it's going down to the wire.
All right, welcome back. First of all, fellas, I'm so grateful to see you as always. But Sahe on the new Wire intro track, absolute fire. Check it out. It's not on iTunes. It's only here on The Wire. But welcome, fellas. I'm back in the studio. I got a new enthusiasm about me. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. Ready to go.
Yes, sir. Good.
Good. Well, let's jump on into it then. We are going to get things kicked off with Kyrie Irving. So with the workplace vaccination bills, laws, legislations that are all coming into effect across the country, we're starting to see some of that ripple over into professional sports. Specifically today, I'm referring to the NBA with San Francisco and New York. Now, without breaking down the setup too much with too much detail, I'm essentially going to tell you that due to the way things are with the legislation that's in place, players who will play at home will need to be vaccinated in order to do so in those two stadiums. So speaking about the Warriors and the Nets. Now this actually only out of both teams singled out two players. That was Andrew Wiggins of Golden State, who has since been vaccinated, and Kyrie Irving of Brooklyn. Now, as it stands, Kyrie is standing to lose roughly $381,000 per home game if he decides that he's not going to get vaccinated and things stay the way that they are. So I'll get first of all, I want to steer away from the political side of this discussion, whether or not people should or shouldn't be forced to get the vaccination. For the sake of this conversation, the NBA is saying you got to get it done. So we're going with that being a ruling. But I do want to get you guys' opinion on what Kyrie should do in the situation as a whole. You're always free to speak your minds, but I'd like to try to steer us away from a huge political debate because we're here for sports. Let's start with Trey.
I think Kyrie has the right to make whatever decision he thinks is best for him. If he's okay with losing that amount of money, then that more power to him. I think in that situation, from my perspective, with everything going on as far as like being accountable to my team, me being one of the people on the team, and just the money in general, I would just have gone on and done it. But I mean, everybody's getting to make their own decisions about that. I don't think it was the best decision for his situation.
Richie, professionals all across the country, I'm sure it's the same in your workplace. I know it is in mine, are getting put in this position where they need to make the vaccination, happen. This for Kyrie is looking at roughly $381,000 a game. What are your thoughts?
Well, I got to say a couple of things. One, I'm going to get political, even though Justin just said we weren't going to get political. But the first thing I'm going to say is, to be clear, the NBA is not mandating the vaccines. That's not what's happening. Anyone who lives in a state where the vaccine is mandated for public outings. So for instance, that's why we're talking about Kyrie Irving and formerly Andrew Wiggins. Now, the thing with Andrew Wiggins was he was trying to use a religious exemption to which was denied. And the state of California does not give religious exemption in those scenarios. So that's why, as Drew over here, Alan, just kidding, Trey. Here's what happened. He realized, I don't have that kind of money. I'm not Kyrie Irving. I don't have $220 million. So yeah, I don't want to lose $20 million. So he took the vaccine. I think my bigger gripe is not this whole situation with Kyrie and things like that. Like, one, I do think it's irresponsible of these NBA athletes to publicly say it's their right, this, that, and the other. Draymond Green has been, on record saying that it's his right and he respects that. And LeBron James backed that up. And I think it's incredibly disappointing and disingenuous. And I think it's just bad for the youth of America to be hearing these types of things from these types of players, quite frankly. I don't want to get super into this, but what I will say briefly is that I read a thing from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I'm just going to read it because he kind of goes over the same things I have issues with. Kareem wrote, "I'm a huge fan of LeBron James, both as one of the greatest basketball players ever and as a humanitarian who cares about social injustice. I've written his praises many times in the past and undoubtedly will in the future. I admire him and have affection for him, but this time LeBron is just plain wrong. We're referring to choices, and his being wrong could be deadly, especially to the Black community. After Andrew Wiggins received criticism for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine, his teammate Draymond Green said the public needs to honor that decision. There is something to be said for people's concern about something that's being pressed so hard," he said. "Why are you pressing this hard? You have to honor people's feelings and their own personal beliefs." LeBron James responded that he couldn't have said it better himself. "Actually, it could have been said worse." On the surface, it appears that Draymond and LeBron are arguing for the American ideal of individual freedom of choice, but they offer no arguments in support of it, nor do they define the limits of when one person's choice is harmful to the community. They're merely shouting, "I'm for freedom." We're all for freedom, but not at the expense of others if it damages the country. That's why we mandate seatbelts, motorcycle helmets, car insurance, education for children. Seatbelt compliance is 88% in the US, but that 12% that don't comply result in 47% of car fatalities and cost US employers $5 billion a year. And those costs are passed to us. They made the choice, but we survivors are left to deal with the grief and the price tag. The cost of COVID-19 on this country is difficult to measure. We can come up with a monetary amount. Harvard economists say it's up to 16 trillion so far. Money that might have been spent to build the country, provide jobs, help the disadvantaged. But the real cost is the 700,000 dead, thousands of which could still been saved if they followed CDC protocols and gotten vaccinated. And thousands more are dying every day. Add that to the medical costs on those who will suffer from years from long haul symptoms. The only support for Draymond's statement is his belief that when people press hard, there's something inherently wrong with their opinion. There is no logic to that statement. If I press hard against institutional racism, if I press hard against police brutality, if I press hard against recent lawmaking, making it harder for minorities to vote, if I press hard against child porn, if I press hard in support of Me Too, am I automatically wrong? On the contrary, the passion of those urging vaccines might suggest there's some urgency to their opinion. That the situation is serious and we need to take immediate action to protect people. That thousands are dying every day, most unvaccinated. That the Black community, where vaccine hesitancy is high, are dying at a disproportional higher rate than whites. That publicly talking about honoring opinions that contribute to the deaths is irresponsible. The country also mandates against drunk driving, pressing hard against the freedom to drive under the influence. We do that because drunk driving kills 11,000 Americans every year and costs us more than $44 billion. Vaccine deniers and those who want to honor them are like drunk drivers who are convinced they're okay to drive. When they make it home without an accident, that means they're right, until they aren't, which is why 97% of COVID deaths are among the unvaccinated. While some who don't get the vaccine might never get sick, or if they do suffer mild symptoms, they're still unknowingly spreading the disease to others, killing some. While we're honoring the unvaccinated, COVID cases are rising alarmingly among young children. I think of this situation like old fire brigades where people stood in line, passing buckets of water to save their neighbor's house from burning to the ground. Maybe some people were afraid to join the line, but when the town leaders joined in, it encouraged others to do their duty. Today's celebrities and athletes are like those town leaders. You either join the line and save your neighbor's home, or you stand by and let it burn because you don't owe them anything. So I just wanted to use Kareem's words because, quite frankly, that man's way more eloquent than any of us on this show. But I just wanted to mention that, to me, I don't appreciate any of these public athletes like this. You know, it's one thing, like, for instance, we can talk about it on another day. Many athletes can make that choice, but to publicly denounce these things or say it's a choice we have to respect, I'm with Kareem here. We don't have to respect it because there's science and there's data that say there's no reason to respect that, quite frankly.
Then we really shouldn't be asking them.
They're only asking him because he has a religious exemption. That's the only reason Wiggins was asked.
But we're asking these athletes for for their decisions in doing that. So we're asking them to give up whether they have got vaccinated or not, and to say that it's my business is not good enough. So we can't have it both ways. We do have choices. They can make it to where we don't have choices, but they do have choices. And when they're asked to give their thoughts on a situation, and they tell us, we can't double back and be like, that's irresponsible.
Well, sure you can. Just because someone has an opinion doesn't mean it's not irresponsible.
Then, I mean,
absolutely,
okay,
you can.
Let's not ask, because we're asking them to give their opinion. We're asking them about whether they're getting vaccinated or not.
Oh, no. Like, I agree with you, Trey, in the sense of it shouldn't come down to whether somebody's vaccinated or not. And quite frankly, they hadn't been releasing that info.
Right.
And 90% of the NBA is vaccinated, and that's where they've left it. The only reason why these two are being bullied by the media, as Trey's referring to, is because they have openly said that they were unvaccinated. And if they didn't say anything, then maybe they don't get the flack, but then it would be noticeable in these two cases, to Trey's point, because they'd be missing a game. And to Trey's point, they'll be asked about it. Why did you miss the game? Well, it's obviously because you didn't have the vaccine.
Right.
So it's definitely beyond sports, but my whole advocacy on why I don't appreciate Draymond Green and LeBron speaking about it is, again, they can hit a large group of people. Like, and when they find it, here's my thing. If you're socially responsible, which I'm not implying they're not just because they don't agree with me. I'm not saying that at all. And I think Kareem was a little strong in stating that. But to me, if you're somebody who can affect, here, let me give you some data. If you're somebody who can affect these types of data, here's an example. Minorities as a whole, and I can go through each minority. We are all less vaccinated than white people. That's just a reality. Here's an example. Now, the worst is actually Hispanics, so I'll just start with them. Hispanics are 31% of vaccinations, but only 31% of them are vaccinated. There's 61% of cases right now and 47% of all deaths. So that's massive to be unvaccinated. For blacks, it's significantly less, and they're just lumping them. But blacks have 9% of the vaccination of the state of Florida, and they're 15% of the cases, 17% of the deaths. So it's about 2 to 1. That's not as bad as, for instance, the Hispanics. And the same thing with Asians. Asians are 53% vaccinated and cases at 33%. So, but the point is they are significantly more unvaccinated than white people currently are. And to me, I think that, like, anybody who could be a spokesperson for vaccinations, it would be helpful for them to advocate if they're taking it. I don't like that it feels like a business decision for some of these athletes, because when it comes to what they need, they'll do it. But then when it comes to something they don't, like China or the vaccine, they don't want to lose fans because it's split. And again, whether you want to get vaccinated or not, I'm going to sit here and argue with fans or anybody. Like, that's your choice, and I agree with that. But if you're public if you can hit the masses to the level these guys can, then don't say anything, quite frankly. I would prefer they say nothing than just say it's my choice, I've done my research, and I'm not getting it. Because you haven't done it.
I agree with that. Maybe they can say nothing.
Yeah, just zip it.
but they are getting. It's a topic for them, whether they want it to be or not, and to say nothing on it has been a detriment to them, regardless of how they feel on it. They can't say nothing. So what I'm saying is, if we don't want them to be irresponsible with their words, depending on what side of the position you stand on, you're gonna feel like it's irresponsible. I feel like it's a no-win situation.
Well, I agree that it's no win, but again, they can't say. Here's an example: DeAndre Hopkins, Cole Beasley. You guys know who they are. Cole Beasley has been very adamant that he's not going to take the vaccine. DeAndre Hopkins also has not taken the vaccine, but you've not heard that once. Not heard that once. And that's what I'm referring to is if you don't want to be a spokesperson for the vaccine and if you don't believe in getting the vaccine, that's one thing. But I don't think you need to publicly defend someone who's not your business. Like by the same token of it's my business.
I got you.
You don't need to be saying that's that guy's business, stay out of it.
Yeah,
because it's not his business. LeBron and Draymond have no reason to be commenting on Andrew Wiggins and Kyrie Irving's personal lives in that capacity, and they don't need to be defending them. Like I agree with Trey, very simply, point blank, these gentlemen have the right to make a choice. I'm not disputing that at all. But what I'm saying is there shouldn't be like every athlete like shouldn't be defending like pro or for like. I just think this: if LeBron's vaccinated and he believes it's worth getting vaccinated, he should say that, or he should say nothing. But what he hasn't done is he hasn't said go get vaccinated, but at the same time he says defend. You know, it's the right to this guy's choice, but he's making a business decision. Do I believe LeBron James wants to get vaccinated? No, but he realized I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to play the game and I'm going to play. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's really how LeBron feels. Maybe he determined the vaccine's better for him. But after last year not being vaccinated and this year being vaccinated, that's what I expect. And we've said a lot, me and Trey. So let's let Sahe have
we're gonna slide. Sahe, I got some numbers to feed the fire. Who knew the former NBA great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had such motivating words to spark this conversation? No, so overall, Kyrie Irving's looking at missing, and this kind of goes to somebody's point. I don't remember who said it. We're going to notice he's not there, right? It's a total of 43 games, 42 home games, and of course a game over at Golden State that he wouldn't be able to play. Well, no, I guess it would be just the 42 because they can only hold Golden State accountable, not the teams traveling in and out.
Precisely.
That's at $381,000 a game, Sahe, equivalent just for the regular season, not including whatever they get paid for preseason or postseason. He's looking at $16,383,000 that he would make, that he'd be sacrificing to only play away games. There's a little bit of numbers there for you. You've heard what the guys had to say. It's all you, man.
I feel like Kyrie's just sending a message, you know what I'm saying? And it's up to you to decide what that message is. Because like I said, we could get into a huge conversation. This is like a fire starter, right? Either you're with it or not. But I'm just going to say this, like, I feel like Kyrie's doing the best, like we said, he's doing the best thing for him. And it's up to other people to decide what's best for them, no matter what it is. Kyrie, and that's pretty much the message that Kyrie's sending, like, you know what I'm saying? Think for yourself kind of thing. Don't listen to what anybody else says about it. If it's going to work for you, it works for you. If not, it doesn't. But don't sacrifice yourself for what other people tell you is good for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's like Richie said, Kyrie can afford to do that. So the saying is, be who you can afford to be. So if your job is going to fire you for not taking the vaccine, then you probably should take it because you probably need that to do whatever you need to do. And that's what it comes down to, you know. Kyrie just fighting against the control because he can. Most people like us can't do that. So Kyrie's in a unique position and more power to him, you know?
Absolutely. So Sahe, I have been known to be a radio fire starter, and I'm not quite done, but we are going to turn the wheel back towards sports a little bit. Leaving this, the why beside, I want to go around the horn quick and get you guys' view of when does Brooklyn step in and say, okay, well, he's got the right to do these things, to take these personal days and not tell the organization or anybody where he's going, to deny 42 home games and potential away game. When does Brooklyn decide, okay, well, maybe, for business sake, we need to have somebody that doesn't use their rights as often? I don't know a better way to put that, but they've got a superstar on their team that frequently just takes time off for his own personal reasons. And we're not arguing that that's a bad thing, but you got a guy missing 42 days of work, plain and simple. What should be the professional decision from the company standpoint? Sahe will go reverse for it.
From a company decision, I would say, Kyrie, do what you got to do. We're not going to have to pay you that money anyway, so we can allocate those funds elsewhere. You do what you got to do. Stay healthy, and hopefully by playoff time, you're with us. You know what I'm saying? So they're probably happy they can save that money. They're like, yeah, they're probably encouraging it. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get some of this money back, y'all. Like, yeah, Kyrie, do what you gonna do. We got Kevin Durant, James Harden. I'm pretty sure they can hold it down without you. So you know what I'm saying? We believe in you, buddy. Do you? Can you send that check back? I think we sent it too early. That's what they're gonna say to him. So, I think they're in a good position either way.
A caveat to your point, and then we'll get into something else. A caveat to that is, if the other two can stay healthy. Also, I'm not sure that I don't believe, Richie, I think we're at you next anyway. That money doesn't go back to the cap, right? That just saves them some.
It saves them money. It doesn't go to the cap. To me, it's what Sahe said, though. It's just reality. He has a personal choice to make. He's allowed to make that choice. Brooklyn can do nothing about it. They cannot mandate this vaccine. That would be the stupidest thing they could do, period. Like, whether you agree or disagree with the vaccine, you can't, like, as an organization, no, don't go that route. You can't go that route. When you start taking free will out of the government's going to do that. You're not the government. I wouldn't do that. I think it's just a terrible move by the team. Now, obviously, I'm sure all of his teammates are hoping eventually he'll quote unquote come around, but if he doesn't, he doesn't, and he has the right to make that choice. I think it'll really hinder Brooklyn because, quite frankly, as good as James and KD are, having Kyrie is what I think is the difference maker, the three of them, and to not be able to play him and play home games is going to be a problem. And I don't see how they overcome that in terms of winning a championship. But what can the organization do? It's really nothing. It's more like, what can KD do to convince his best friend, hey man, we really need you. But no, he has the right to not take that vaccine. The organization cannot and shouldn't. Well, technically they could, but I think that would be a really poor decision on their part. I think it would be bad optics. And I also think that would just be a disgruntled Kyrie Irving. Okay, you're going to mandate the vaccine. Well, then he's just like, I'm not going to play. Because we just discussed, he's in a position where he can do what he needs to do for himself. So you're not doing yourself any favors. If you push that hard and then he goes on the did not play list, you don't get that money to go pick up a new employee. It doesn't work like that. So they just put themselves in they're alienating him and putting themselves further and further away from these things, and then trying to trade. It's not in their best interest. Their best interest is to let him play as is, and either hope the state opens up or he changes his mind down the road. That's what I think Brooklyn would need to do. But for Kyrie Irving, do what he needs to do. If he doesn't feel like he needs the vaccine, it's his business. He'll just sit out the games at home, and he can play the away ones, including, as Justin mentioned, in California. They can't be regulated like that. So
Trey, do you agree with these guys, or do you think that a combination? And to clarify the question, because I know it was kind of all over the place, it was on the spot, but this is really a culmination when it comes to him. We don't know what was pulling him away from the game last year. Maybe he was just feeding into Sahe's conspiracy, taking some time off because they were rotating. Who knows? But at some point, as a member of management in Brooklyn, do you feel the need to eliminate that problem, or just hope he's healthy when playoffs come?
I would say as an organization, you have to do a cost-risk analysis. Basically, if he's costing more money than he's worth, then you have to make that move as a business. But until then, you just ride it out. He's got that right. And you're optics-wise, you just let it play out the way it plays out until it starts costing you money. Like I said, and then at that point, you do what you have to do as far as getting a trade or seeing what you can get out there on the market for. Just business-wise, no anything else attached to it.
Absolutely. All right. Let's get on to something a little more light, something that doesn't have all the heavy implications. Thank you guys for handling that. Like gentlemen, we are going to move on to a man who's been described on this show as Daddy Brady. He set a second, correct me if I'm wrong, he might have more than that, but second big-time quarterback NFL record this weekend. He already holds the record for career touchdowns as a quarterback, but after this past Sunday when he returned to his alma mater in the NFL, New England, Tom Brady now holds the NFL record for career passing yards. He surpassed the previous record of 80,358 yards that was held by Drew Brees, and he now has a career of 80,560 passing yards. He's got two of the most prolific NFL quarterback records. Let's start off, Trey, we're going to go in reverse order. What are your thoughts? Richie, we're going to go in reverse order. We'll come back to Trey. What are your thoughts regarding Tom Brady now that he is holding two of the, really the two most prolific quarterback records?
I mean, to me, this just once again shows how under the radar he's always been, even though he's the 7-time Super Bowl champ, yada, yada, yada. It's one of those things where people don't realize how hard and how big these records are. And it's unfortunate because in about 15 years, they're going to start getting blasted because there's 17 game schedules now. So quarterbacks will get an additional game. So these younger kids are going to be coming in with a competitive statistical advantage, and it will be passed because of that alone. Now, this has happened before in sports, 12 game seasons, etc. So this isn't new to the NFL, but it's a reality. So what this says to me, though, is just what we've always, at least I've always affirmed, which is Tom Brady is the GOAT. Not only because he passed these yards and he passed these touchdowns and he played in a pass-friendly era, but who did he do it with when you really think about it? Now, yes, he had the greatest tight end of all time and Rob Gronkowski, but when you really look at it, he had a bunch of nobodies except for Randy Moss for a very, very small, limited window. So, well, I mean, Sahe would probably disagree when you look at the Tampa Bay wide receivers right now. But having said, you take those two away.
I can't ever cut you off, Richie, but did you just say Rob Gronkowski was the greatest tight end of all time?
Yeah, I did. I had another goat alert.
Do we have anybody that can argue Gronkowski is the greatest tight end of all time next week?
Bring in the Tony Gonzalez's and anyone else you want, guys.
Tony Gonzalez. I'm going to say Tony Gonzalez.
All right, we got a second goat alert. Richie's hitting that button all the time now.
I hit it all the time. I like to have fun here. By the way, Tony G is easily somebody we could argue for that. But anyways, back to the point real quick. Just sorry. I'll be very succinct here. Like I said, he didn't really have the same weapons Drew Brees had. When you look, he didn't have the offenses and the ability to go gunslinging, and yet still he is at the top of the list. And it's just indicative of who he is as a quarterback, is even though he's always been like, the creme de la creme, he never got his due. And it's taken this long for people to really notice, even though he's Super Bowl winner after Super Bowl winner. You always hear Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger for a small period of time, Aaron Rodgers, somebody was always better than him. And it's just, this just goes to show as great as he is, he's always under the radar. I'm glad to see it happen, and I'm glad he requested it to be an under the radar celebration. It was very quick. He didn't want anything flashy. So kudos to Tom Brady, man. GOAT for the reason. GOAT in the regular season, GOAT in the postseason. Best quarterback there is.
There was a whole bunch of media about how New England had stated that they would like pause things, and that didn't happen. I don't know if he stopped that or not. Trey, we were going to drop. Did he stop it? Okay. Just your general thoughts on the man grabbing the second of the two most prolific NFL quarterback records.
Man, you already know. I haven't been stopped my Tom Brady slander. I made a statement about that. I'm serious. He's the GOAT, and we know he's the GOAT. He's gonna finish with the record for Super Bowls, and he's gonna finish by all metrics as the greatest quarterback of all time. Period. And it was only a matter of time before he did it. I'm glad he did it. But I mean, you know, what else could you say about Tom Brady that hasn't already been said? He's torn my heart out. He's spit on it, and he's went on about his day. You know? And he's doing it again in my division. Again. It's all right. You know? We was only down by 2. We was coming back, and he just did his thing. His Brady magic.
You never bet against him. Sahe, did you I know Brady turned it down, but did you want more of a celebration from New England? And follow-up question to lead us into the half here. Is there a quarterback playing right now that you could put your bet on to surpass this record at some point in their career?
Quarterback playing right now, Patrick Mahomes. He better do it. All that money he getting paid. That's what they saying in Kansas City. Like that 80,000. Yeah, that 80,000 ain't nothing compared to that. What he get? $500 million.
Something like that. 45 million a year, something like that.
Yeah, Tom Brady ain't never topped that kind of money. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes better have 125,000 career total yards at this point in his career.
Do interceptions count? Because he's been racking those up this season.
No, as long as you get the stats.
That's a low blow, man.
That's the Patrick Mahomes slander coming from the unbiased host here. Go ahead.
That's what I was about to say. Come on, man. You got to go home eventually. What are you doing?
He's on my fantasy team, but just...
You muted yourself, buddy.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I was going to let you finish. Is that all? Heck yeah. All right. Well, you guys are listening. Okay. Listening to and watching The Wire. Don't go anywhere when we come back. We got a couple things to talk about. The fellows wanted to discuss last week, if you remember, Pete Carroll and what the hell's going on in Seattle. So we're going to open the floor to talk about that. And we did have a GOAT alert today and last week. Richie called out Justin Tucker, and these guys are going to contest that. You're watching and listening to The Wire. Don't go anywhere. What's going on, everybody? It's Justo from the H2G podcast. I'm tuning in real quick just to let you know that we've been listening to you and listening to ourselves, and we know that you want us to go back to our roots. So we're excited to announce that the H2G podcast Season 7 will be taking it back to our roots. We're going to be talking about topics that we are passionate about, that we know you're passionate about, and we're going to try to make some waves. So tune in this Friday and every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to the H2G podcast. Don't miss it. All right, folks. Welcome back to The Wire. Thank you for tuning in. And while you were on the break, we hope that you've hit that follow button, that like button, that subscribe button. If not, the beautiful thing is you can pause and do that right now before we talk about any other sports. Go and like us. Go follow us. Surprise us with a notification. Our Patreon is in the comments below or in the bio below. Make sure you're checking out the H2G podcast. That was the commercial you just heard. We have restructured the way that show works, and we're handling topics that we know that you're passionate about, that we're passionate about. We talked about social media. This coming Friday, you're gonna see a great discussion about the effects that social media has had on society in general. Last week, go back and watch episode 1. My God, what a discussion that we had relating to the heartbeat law and pro-life versus pro-choice. So big topics and more to come this season. Make sure you check out H2G podcast. Okay, we're done with that. Let's talk about Pete Carroll in Seattle. Now, I know Marvin wanted to speak about this and he couldn't be with us tonight. So we'll definitely have to get his take on it. But otherwise, the real question, guys, is what is going on in Seattle? Is this a situation where it's just miscue after miscue, or do we have to blame Pete Carroll? What's going on, Richie?
To me, it's blaming Pete Carroll, but I will be very honest. I am a biased Pete Carroll hater. I always have been. I always hated him in USC. I hated how smug he was. I hated how smug he was when he joined Seattle. But honestly, my biggest complaint with Pete Carroll is how I've never seen a man cripple and limit somebody's career, i.e. Russell Wilson, the way Pete Carroll has. Right now, you got 2 stud wide receivers. You got 2 amazing wide receivers. Russell Wilson averages almost 8 yards per throw. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, by the way. And it's not like DK Metcalf's on my fantasy team or anything. That's not why I'm talking about this at all. Or that I've Russell Wilson. Let's not talk about it like that. But let's get down to business, man. This is bull. He runs on first and second way too often. This has been a trending thing every single year. His conservative play style, his ability to not go on 4th down, his ability to not have Russell do any rollouts or quarterback draw. Like, Russell Wilson is a dual threat, people. Like, don't get me wrong. He's a great quarterback, top 5 quarterback, can throw it 5,000 yards. Every year he starts off hot. The teams figure out their offense and then he struggles. But that's not Russell Wilson struggling. That's their inept offense and like Pete Carroll's lack of ability to allow Russell Wilson to do things like, for instance, like Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson. And I'm not saying he runs like them, but what I'm saying is their coaches gave them the reins and said, do what you need to do to be successful. And I don't believe Pete Carroll has done so. Now, don't get me wrong. I think having, studs like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf help Russell, but they just don't let it, if they did what Tampa Bay did, I think they'd at least have, 2.5 to 3 more wins this season. Do I think that's necessarily enough to win, the Super Bowl with that team? No. But, what you have to focus on is where the team's at now and what they can and can't do. And his conservative calling is my biggest gripe. I don't know what Marvin's biggest gripe is, but for the love of God, please give DK Metcalf more touches. Please. Come on, man. I've had him for weeks. He was my first. I know this is a fantasy draft, like whining, but first pick of my wide receivers, man. He scored 1 touchdown in 4 weeks. Like, I don't know what's Trey destroyed me this week. And don't get me wrong, like my team did horrible no matter what. Like, I don't even care. My flex didn't even score points. It wouldn't have made a difference. That's why I didn't even care that James Robinson had 24 points and I put him on the bench because I still would have lost to Trey. That's how useless DK Metcalf has been. DK Metcalf has scored 32 total points in 4 games. And I blame Pete Carroll. I don't blame Russell Wilson, man. Russell Wilson could be a dickhead and throw the ball away and, not listen to Pete and make his own plays, but that's not who he is. He's a team player, right? If the coach calls a play, he's not going to audible it and be that asshole. And maybe he's about to just give me crap and tell me why Russell Wilson should be doing that. But nonetheless, what I will say is the conservative approach has been why they've been unsuccessful. The Legion of Boom is garbage since it's gone. There is no defense over there. It's Russell Wilson throwing for 5 touchdowns for the first 5 games of the season. He looks like he's about to throw 70, and then he can't throw a touchdown. Except now we're at week 4, and he's not throwing any to DK Metcalf, so I don't even care how many he's got right now. This is ridiculous. I'm just glad I got Kyle Lockett, Kyle Murray. Like, I got nothing to say. I got Tyler Lockett and Kyle Murray stuck together. That's how annoyed I am. Forget the Seahawks. Pete Carroll should have been fired 5 years ago. I hope he's fired tomorrow.
Okay. Moving over to Sahe. They're 2-2, the Seahawks. And those losses coming through, let me get to that, Titans and Vikings. Sahe, what do you think is going on in Seattle? They should be, for all intents and purposes, a threat. What's stopping them from being so?
I don't think anything's stopping them from being a threat so far. They lost 2 games, close overtime game to the Titans. Titans are a good team. And I think they just let one get away with when they played the Vikings, you know? This is a team that could easily be 3-1, maybe 4-0. The Colts look good. They blanked the Chargers, and the Chargers is an upstart team. So they're just finding their way. It's going to be a long season. They're always a team that either turns it around or they're there right at the finish. You know what I'm saying? Pushing for playoff. They've got high expectation. That's why we're talking about them like this right now. So these plays could go either way. Richie's calling them conservative, but if they work, Pete Carroll's a genius, you know? So it's just one of those, just how the game goes, how the ball bounces. Sometimes it's not always going to go your way. But I do understand that Pete Carroll is handcuffing Russell Wilson a little bit. But at the same time, Russ can overcook. So Pete Carroll's got to kind of find that balance. And I think it's a struggle because they're not on the same page 100%. So once they do, they'll be all right. Maybe Pete Carroll has to move on somewhere, you know? Maybe it is time for him to get out of there. Who knows? But they've got a good team up there. Maybe they'll figure it out, but let's hope they don't. I mean, go Hawks.
So we got a less conspiratory, more psychological and philosophical Sahe on the panel, but still biased. We're gonna slide over to Trey. Trey, what do you think is going on in Seattle? I mean, we've heard Pete Carroll, we've heard that Russ could do more. What do you think?
I think it's a combination of a few things. I think he's came a long way since I think he lost the locker room after that Super Bowl decision. He's come a long way since then. I think he's holding Russell Wilson back by trying to focus more on the defense instead of getting him what he needs in the trenches on the offensive line. I think
That's a good one.
We lost him.
Patriots. What's up, fellas? This is how we do.
Do the Rick and Bobby pose for the frame.
yeah, I feel like his voice is a little stale in the locker room right now. And I think if they would have continued on their run that they had, if he would have called that right call, then they would be in a different place right now. But they've lost a lot. And they're trying to put Band-Aids on broken bones a little bit, and it's starting to show through.
All right. Well, does anybody? I agree. We had some great takes on. Does anybody else have anything on Seattle, or do we get into this mess of Justin Tucker versus the world?
I got one thing to say. I wish Trey, you kind of cut out. I wish I could have heard a little bit more of it, because this is the man who picked AJ Green over DeAndre Hopkins, and AJ Green has outperformed DeAndre Hopkins. Seattle should have listened to Trey.
That's all right. I broke. We'll get into a fantasy recap, but remember I said I was feeling superstitious because I was around all those Kansas City people, and I was 3-0 because of it. And then I looked at my damn score, and guess what happened? Rob Gronkowski's out. I didn't know. Just so anyway.
Yeah, he has like 6 broken or 6 bruised ribs and 1 broken one.
That's what happens, I guess, when I don't pay all the attention. All right, so Richie, you called out Justin Tucker as the greatest kicker of all time. How we've done, for those who are new to the wire, how we've done goat alerts in the past is the person that calls it out makes their case for the greatest whoever of all time, and the other gentleman, if they can argue it, contest as such. So Richie, you have the floor. Justin Tucker is who you said was the greatest NFL kicker of all time. Why is that?
Okay, I'll be very succinct here just because I usually do arguments against people before, so I'm not going to do that. Here's why very quickly, and then I'll have rebuttal. He is 4-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first All-Pro, also Super Bowl champion, NFL record for career high 90.65%, okay? His worst season was 82.5% field goals, okay? Which I know I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I am gonna do it now. Adam Vinatieri's career high and career average is 83.8. That boy, his best and average was barely better than Justin Tucker's worst season ever, okay? Justin Tucker is by far the GOAT. It's not even debatable. He also has a really funny stat. This doesn't make him the GOAT, but it's pretty funny. He's the only NFL player to kick a field goal from the 20, the 30, the 40, the 50, and the 60 in the same game. If you can rely on your kicker to do that, you got the best kicker in football. So I'll let someone else make a case because we don't need to get it too long-winded, but I am ready to shoot down your fake GOAT kickers.
Okay. So we're going to let them both, because of how the last GOAT alert went down, we're going to let them both get their kickers out, and then we'll go back around for some rebuttaling. Who wants to go first? Anybody that'd like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
George Blanda. Come on now, the greatest kicker of all time. Not only was he a kicker, but he was a quarterback too. He was out there slanging dimes and hanging nines. He had 236 passing touchdowns, okay? His passer rating was 60.6. What's Justin Tucker's passer rating? How many touchdowns Justin Tucker threw? Answer me that. All right. He had 98.3% on his field goals of extra point field goals. 98.3%. Come on now. That's a golden toe. Greatest to ever do it. And he played how many? 3,000 years? Come on. He was playing pickup ball with Pharaoh.
He played 27 years to Sahe's credit.
Yeah, he was in the sandbox with Pharaoh and them over in Egypt. Come on now. George Blanda, the greatest kicker of all time.
Throwing dimes and hanging knives, George Blanda.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Trey, I don't know how you're going to top it, man. Anybody better than Justin Tucker? Oh no, did we lose him again?
I think so. We'll wait for a sec.
Yeah. Throwing dimes and hanging knives.
I have to admit, I appreciate him going George Blanda.
You had to, man.
Because that's a way funnier argument than Adam Vinatieri.
I thought he was going to change the question when he asked Trey. I thought he was going to say, is there another greatest other than George Blanda? I thought I thought it was over. This dude was probably chugging beers on the sideline. Like, Blanda, we need 3. He's like, you know what? Throw the can down, put it right through the uprights.
Crack a new one.
What this played out, Trey?
How many touchdown passes does Justin Tucker have?
Probably not one. Probably not one.
Definitely not one.
Definitely not one.
Come on now. 47.7 completion percentage back in the 60s and 70s. Come on.
That was a good one.
He
was signed to Chicago Bears in 1949 for $600. He played for the love of the game. That's what made him the greatest.
$600 was a lot of money in 1949.
It sure was. Bought you a whole lot of hooch.
Oh, he's in Chicago.
Yeah, he's in Chicago right now.
He owe a lot of hooch to drink on the sideline. While he's throwing dimes and hanging dimes. I've never heard that. That is a staple. So this podcast I listened to, last podcast on the left, one of the guys is apparently way more notable as an actor than I realized. Henry Zabrowski. He's in like Wolf on Wall Street. I'll pull up his credits again. A bunch of stuff I've actually seen him in, but I didn't realize it was him. Just goes to show that radio guys never look the way they sound. Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, Murderfist, Trollville. He was in Heroes Reborn, Wolf on Wall Street. That's really all the notable ones. Show's pretty awesome. But you have to be an atheist to like it. Almost exclusively.
Watch
Otherwise,
the podcast.
The podcast is called The Last Podcast on the Left.
What?
I mean it's called The Last Podcast on the Left. It's like comedy version of true crime, but it's like what's the term for it? It's a black comedy, not racially.
You're saying not a Tyler Perry comedy, but a black comedy.
No, like at the end of every show they say, "Hail Satan, hail me, holler yourselves, people, have a good show." But that's because they don't believe in God or Satan, so they say "Hail Satan" a lot.
All right, well, I don't know if Trey's coming back, so we might want to just, unfortunately, wrap. And if he comes back, we can always just adjust it.
All right, so I just did all that Hail Satan stuff. You're welcome, Patreon. We're gonna cut that, and even nobody gets those behind the scenes.
Right.
Hail Satan recorded. Great.
You're gonna go to edit and it's just gonna keep looping at that part. You're gonna try to cut it off. Light's gonna start flickering.
That'd be my luck.
It's gonna be a wrap.
All right, Richie. So we lost Trey. We've heard the case made. What was his name again? Gary Bland? Is that what you said?
No, George Blanda.
George Blando. I didn't know that George Blando was throwing dimes and dropping knives back in the day. So I'm still learning.
I mean, I know who he is. I didn't see it coming from Sahe. That's what I'm going to say. Now, I'm not, you know what? Sahe is the greatest car salesman of all time. I would buy a tricycle from Sahe. He could tell me it was a Corvette and I'd believe him. I'm just being honest. But to the real audience here, here's why George Blanda is not the greatest kicker of all time. It's because his career average is 52%. But don't get me wrong, his extra points were on point, 98%. But I mean, when you're on a coin flip kicker, I'm sorry, even though he was throwing dimes and dropping nines or whatever he said, that was so catchy. Come on, man. But I'll tell you what, I give kudos to Sahe for giving a different answer because don't get me wrong, Marvin, maybe we'll have a chance to do a recap or retry later. He was going to say Adam Vinatieri. I don't want to get into all the details about why he isn't. But what I'll say is, actually, I'm going to burp, so hold up. I didn't want to burp in front of you guys. Apologize. What I'll say is this. Justin Tucker is the man, okay? He is 50 for 50 in the final minute of the game. He has never missed a field goal in the final minute of the game. Adam Vinatieri, people forget, on his second Super Bowl went 1 for 3. Okay. Yes, he kicked one that went in the game, but he missed 2. And Justin Tucker, it just doesn't miss. And I think, to me, that's how I like to focus on things, because it's the same thing when you talk about like other athletes. It's not fair to compare, for instance, Bill Russell has more championships than LeBron, so Bill Russell's better than LeBron. It's kind of an absurd notion, because they're not, it's not just about championships. It's about how effective are you in your position, or how much more dominant are you than the next guy. And to me, Justin Tucker is 7% higher percent in field goal, which is a massive margin. There are 12 people that are more accurate than Adam Vinatieri. There are 0 people more accurate than Justin Tucker. And to me, that's why he's the GOAT. When you talk about a kicker, the whole goal is, how accurate is this? If I put him in there, is he going to make it? And Justin Tucker makes it almost 91% of the time. So to me, that's why he's the GOAT.
Sahe, are you going to leave it with what you said, or do you got more?
That fake field goal with George Blanda.
I'm gonna just say this. If George Blanda sat the bench the whole game and just waited and sat there to be like, hey, we need a kick, he would probably be 50 and what? He made the last 50 in the last whatever minute you said.
Yeah,
he'll probably be 91. He'll be 91% too. Come on now. He's out there playing quarterback too. You don't think he's out there getting fatigued, wear and tear on his leg? He did this for 20 some years, man. He was one of the oldest guys he was one of the oldest guys to play the position, man. You guys taking it for a joke and you're laughing my point away. But George Blanda, man, he was the greatest. I wish he would have been able to just sit the bench like Justin Tucker and not worried about anything else but kicking. But George Blanda was the kicker, and he carried that team. Okay, he was the life. He was one of the original dual threats. You know what I'm saying? They don't make them like that no more. You know what I'm saying? No. They don't make them like that no more. He was the heart and soul of that team. So, the greatest kicker of all time, man.
It's your delivery. We don't mean to laugh the thread away. George Blanda, just for the Wire folks listening at home, is on many lists in the top 5 kickers of all time. I'm laughing because we have had Sahe talk about old quarterbacks and who's the best in that regard, and he kind of made a different statement there. I mean, I'm not saying, are you saying George? Because Tom Brady, I've never seen him kick a field goal. I've seen him drop the knives, but never throw the weight. I've seen him throw the dimes.
Tom Brady's not kicking field goals, so he doesn't belong in this conversation.
No, he doesn't.
I don't want to take him away from him.
I mean, but if he did, I'm sure he could drive a few through if we really needed him to. That's the kind of competitor he is.
I agree with that. New age George Blanda, which Tom Brady broke George Blanda's record for oldest man to throw a touchdown, actually. Yeah. So another Sahe point for him there.
All right.
He's still doing it at 43.
We had a GOAT alert. If you can argue that there's a better kicker, please do it in the comments below. We lost Trey due to some internet issues. That happens in this crazy COVID world we're living in. As always, we want you to follow the show. There's many ways to do that. You can subscribe, you can follow, you can hit the notifications bell. We are on the TikTok now via H2G Podcast. So just type in, if you're going on your browser, which nobody does, tiktok.com/H2G Podcast. Otherwise, just search it, H2G Podcast. You'll find us. Follow us there to get some sneak previews every week, and Patreon below if you want all the sneak previews, behind the scenes bloopers that nobody else gets. That's the way to do it for this week. That's The Wire. We'll see you next Wednesday and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern.